meetings. I'm Roger Waller, and I get to be your host for these programs. And just to give you a little bit of an idea on my background, I'm president of the Academic Senate, but I guess I got selected for this job because I have experience, in doing town hall meetings. So I'm one of those few people on campus that has experience doing these things. Well, let's begin with a few ground rules, some of those basics that we'd like to have you all be aware of. One of the first things is that I encourage you to pick up cards. We have comment cards as you were coming into the auditorium today that will give you an opportunity of providing feedback to the Board of Trustees. The process, as I think most of you are aware, is that this is the first of 4 town hall meetings that we'll be having. They're all scheduled here in Atherton from 2 to 3:30 in the afternoon. They go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Friday the board will be shuffling the cards and taking a look at the various comments that you've made about the different candidates that you've had the opportunity of observing. The cards are color-coded, and if you have a card, that's great. I'm going to actually ask you when it comes time for open forum questions that you raise your card, because I'm going to try to keep everything balanced so that I'm going to call on different people who represent different constituent groups. So the cards can be turned in at the end of the meeting today, or just drop by the President's office and give them to Diana Slauson. Connie Cochran is our slide worker, so periodically I'm going to say, Connie, go to slide 2. And we're going to test that. We'll say, Connie, go to, oops, actually, that's the first question. We should, so the second one, just going to give you a little bit of an idea that the town hall meetings are really designed to give you an opportunity to meet the candidates. The selection process, as you know, has been concluded with a number of candidates being interviewed and the selection committee recommending these 4 people that you'll have the opportunity of meeting over the next few days. So don't forget about the cards and, filling the cards out. What we're doing is going to give you a little bit of an idea what the agenda is, but I can give you a little update on that. It's relatively simplistic, so even I can handle this and explaining it to you. But the first 10 minutes that we're undergoing right now are just opening remarks, and then we're going to invite our first candidate, Rita Cavin, to come up and do some introductory remarks. And then we're going to go into 20 minutes of prepared questions. The various constituent groups here on campus, the Academic Senate, the Management Senate, the Classified Senate, and Student Government, have prepared 3 questions each, and we'll be asking those in a series of 2 groups of 6. So first 20 minutes we'll have a group of 6 questions that will be asked, then we'll take a break, and then we'll have open forum questions. And Diana Slauson and Connie Cochran will be walking down the rows here, and I'll be calling on people, and you can ask any question that you would like to ask of Rita today. And then we'll break at 20 minutes and go back and conclude the remaining 6 questions that were prepared by the various constituent groups. And then at the end of that 20 minutes, we'll have another series of open forum questions. So what we'll do is just try to make sure everything flows well. And it's going to give also Rita an opportunity at the end of today to give some closing comments. Next, we'll go to a discussion on the guidelines, and Connie's going to get us to the guideline slide. And fundamental guideline is just show common courtesy. We understand that some of you are going to be getting up to leave for other meetings or class or other activities, and so the key will be just to try to just be as polite as possible as you get up and leave. Ask only 1 question at a time. Your question should be as short and focused as possible to allow time for an answer and for others to ask their questions. Try to have your question focus on Delta College and other district issues, and avoid personal issues like who's your favorite professional football team or something like this. And then when asking a question, please state your name in relationship to Delta College. Like in my case, I'd say I'm Roger Waller and I'm a member of the faculty. And then I'm going to try to use a rotational approach to try to make sure that as many people from different constituent groups as possible have an opportunity to ask a question. Well, let me be the first to invite our first candidate, Rita Cavin, to join me up front and ask her to make some opening remarks. Let's give her a nice Delta College reception.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I wanted to thank you all for coming because I know this is a really busy time of the year as we get ready for finals and commencement and all the end of the year concerts and things that people have. So I appreciate your time. I've spent 30 years serving community college students in California. 10 years ago, I became the Chief Academic Officer at Citrus College in Southern California, which is smaller than Delta. It was about 11,000 students, I think, when I was doing that. I worked with Dr. Louis Zellers, who came there from Modesto Junior College, and he taught me a lot about facilities development, facilities planning, getting money for facilities, and he also taught me a lot about how to build a sense of community on a campus and communicate well with people. After 5 years, I moved to Mount San Antonio College, which is about 8 miles away from Citrus. It's a very large college. And I started working for Dr. Bill Feddersen, who came there from Napa. And he taught me a lot about partnership building in the community and about shared governance planning. I believe there are 2 key responsibilities for the president of a college. The first responsibility is to the students, and that means that you deliver quality staff, quality faculty, the best equipment, the best facilities that you can deliver, and the best curriculum. The second major responsibility is to the community, primarily as they're represented by their elected board. The responsibility in that area is stewardship, responsibility for the maintenance of the facilities, such as this one, which is beautiful, the grounds, compliance, having audits that have no sanctions in them, having health and safety issues taken care of. It means things like fundraising, representing the community in the college and the community. It means being closely connected to the legislature so that you can lobby for your college. At this point of my career, I feel that I've clearly demonstrated the ability to meet both of those responsibilities and that I'm ready for the next level of leadership. I am very well aware that of the 4 finalists, I'm the only one who has not been a president. I would also like to share with you a couple of things about my family background, even though you're not allowed to ask me according to your guidelines, just to let you know some things that might not be in my bio. My husband is a 3rd-generation architect. He's a tenured faculty member at Cal Poly Pomona, close to retirement. He's on a sabbatical right now, and he's in Germany, and he's lecturing on green policies of colleges and sustainable architecture. My son and his wife are graduate students at University of California, Riverside, and my son wants to be a community college English teacher. So I raised him right. And my daughter is a government relations manager for ADP, which is a large financial international corporation. My stepson is about ready to graduate with his master's in education in Maryland, and he will be an elementary school math teacher. So we're from an education family, and I just thought I'd try to put a little bit of a personal face on who I am.
Thank you, Rita. And that means that we're now ready for question number 1. I feel like Regis Philbin or something when I go through and do this. And Connie's about ready to spring question number 1 on me, too. We're going to leave the questions up after I read them. And this way you'll know what, and it'll also help Rita from a standpoint of also remembering what questions I just asked her. So. That's right. First question, black screen. This is sort of one of those philosophical questions.
It's how does the governor decide our budget?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Considers
there we
black
go.
screen.
All right. Oh. So you want to go with this one? All right, we'll go with this one. This question was submitted by the Classified Senate, and the question is, what experiences do you have in participatory governance structure working with different college constituencies? Give examples.
It's sort of funny, when you're looking at it from this close, it looks very tall. Our college has a strong shared governance, participatory governance structure that we monitor very carefully. So this is the time of the year when we evaluate how it's working and make changes for the next year. I'm involved on what they call the Leadership Council, which has representatives. It's like a Noah's Ark committee. It has representatives from all the different constituencies, including students. And that's the council that determines policy recommendations to the board and prioritizes budget requests. I serve as a co-chair for the Curriculum Council with the Senate President and Curriculum Coordinator. Let me see. I'm chair of the Enrollment Management Committee. The Enrollment Management Committee has members from the faculty, the staff, and other managers. And we study the 320 report every year, or 3 times a year, and make recommendations to Leadership Council determining our growth patterns. I serve on I chair the Program Review Committee, which is institutional program review. Every department has program review every year. That committee has an equal number of faculty, staff, and managers. The Enrollment Management Committee that I referred to previously includes students. So I'm pretty used to taking issues about funding, evaluation, through all the different channels that we have to get approval before we recommend major changes to the board. I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2. Okay, this question was submitted from the Management Senate, and the question is, a good working relationship with the public and private sectors and community leaders within the district is critical to the future of the college. Provide us with examples of community partnerships or collaborations that you have developed, and/or provide us with some of your ideas regarding college/community relationships.
I'll start out with the Lanterman Partnership. If I walk over here, then I don't look into that big old bright light. We have a state mental hospital near our college called Lanterman State Hospital. They needed more psychiatric technicians than we were able to graduate. There's a state shortage in psych techs, and I understand you have a psych tech program here. Our partnership with Lanterman meant that they built us a classroom, they equipped it, and they furnished us with the salaries and benefits for 3 full-time faculty for 3 years. At this point, we're institutionalizing that grant. We also have a partnership developing with Citrus Valley Health Partners to do the same kind of thing for our nursing program because there's a state nursing shortage. We have a partnership with the the 48th Agricultural District, which is a structure that supports state fairs, and they're the educational arm of agriculture in the state. We have a partnership with our farm program with the Ag 48th District, and they're building a facility on our campus. As we develop our farm master plan, we will be able to have what we call an agricultural literacy walk throughout the farmland so that student groups can go through that, children. I'm trying to think of what else. At Citrus College, I was involved with the Toyota T10 project. That's a partnership with Toyota and an automotive program. That was a wonderful program that provided scholarships, tools, and jobs for our automotive students. Toyota was extremely supportive of our program. They only asked that we paint our auto lab facility in Toyota colors. And for that, they gave us Lexuses for the students to practice on. And we painted happily. We painted for them. They gave us a lot of support. We were developing, when I left, we were developing a relationship with Caterpillar because we had a diesel program. I think most of the partnerships occur in the areas of vocational programs. Right now, we're also developing a partnership with the Pomona Unified School District, which is a large school district that we serve. We have 17 different school districts that we serve. In Pomona, they're building education villages, and each village has multiple support services for the community because it's a community that needs a lot of assistance for its students. So we're going into each village with different kinds of programs that are appropriate to those neighborhoods. So we have a teacher preparation program at Indian Hill Village, and we'll be developing a health careers program and a ornamental horticulture program next.
Thank you. Question number 3 comes from student government, and it asks, please explain your interpretation of AB 1725, shared governance, and your experience in campus decision making.
1725 started a while back, and it was designed to improve the quality of instruction for students. Sometimes we forget how it all started, but the legislature was convinced that if we were more like a four-year college and less like a high school, we would provide better services for students. So part of 1725, which most of us now connect to shared governance and participatory governance, other elements included peer evaluation, 4 years for tenure. It didn't used to be that way. We got rid of credentials and put in minimum qualifications. We started things like FSAs that everybody had to have. The state senate took a larger role in policy advising for the chancellor's office, and on local campuses, the senate became very involved in academic and professional issues. There was a component in there for staff development. There were all kinds of things to raise the level of program in community colleges so that students would have a better curriculum and better quality in the campus. At this point, we've done some of those things for so long, peer review and 4-year tenure and minimum quals, that we forget that all of those came out of 1725. But that's where it started. And then as the Senate, the academic senates had a stronger voice, sort of behind that came the idea that we would include students and classified staff in decision-making too.
Thank you.
I don't know if I answered the second half, your experience in campus decision-making. That's the way we've operated at the 2 colleges that I've been at for the last 10 years, has been in a shared governance model. So ever since I've been a vice president in California Community Colleges, we've been operating under 1725.
Okay. Next question. This question comes from the Academic Senate, and it is, you have received a complaint from a community member about a particular class. The community member asserts that the instructor and content of the class are racist and sexist. What are you going to do, and why are you going to do it?
Actually, these things happen. Sometimes it's a community member, and sometimes it's a student, and sometimes it's another faculty member who will make a complaint. Sometimes about a play or a textbook or something that a teacher said. And down where I live in Southern California, I know nothing like this would happen up in Northern California, but in Southern California, right after 9/11, there was a teacher who got into a big problem in the Orange County area because of some things that he said to a classroom of students. And it was in all of the papers almost every day. And I would meet with my deans and say, now this is how to do it wrong. We want to learn from what they're doing over there. We don't ever want to make these mistakes. I think the first thing you do for any complaint when it comes to my office is you listen very carefully. Recently, I had a man who came with much forewarning. He was very upset, and he had started making complaints at the lower level and hadn't gotten along well with people. He didn't have really good people skills, but he was very angry. And he was a sort of a powerful appearing person, and he was very upset. And the less satisfaction he got, the more angry he got, and then the more intimidated the people listening to him became. By the time I knew I had an appointment with him, he was very rude to my secretary. We finally got the appointment worked out, and he showed up. And I was getting asked, did I want security in the area and all this, and I didn't really think I needed that. So anyway, he came in, and it turned out that part of the problem all the way up was that nobody just sat there and quietly listened to the person to hear what he had to say. And even though his method of delivery was not what you would have wanted, actually what he was saying was pretty good. He had a suggestion for making an improvement at the college that was a legitimate suggestion, and he was a very bright man, and we had just really been rude to him. Now, they're both sides. I mean, he had been rude to us too, but essentially he left the office as our friend and continues to drop by to see me every now and then. So I think you have to sometimes divorce the message and the messenger. You have to find out what it is that upset this person. You have to put it in context of what their background is and why they think this is a racist or sexist issue, and you have to explore it. So at some point, I would have to talk to the dean or the department chair and talk to the faculty member and find out what happened. Usually, we can explain college-level material. Mostly I get complaints about a reading assignment or a play or something like that. That you can talk about the fact that this is adult education and that there's academic freedom issues here and that this is college and not high school, and so you can usually work your way around those kinds of issues. Sometimes, frankly, I've only had one where it was really a terrible situation. The teacher actually was very inappropriate, and we had to deal with that. He had visited another college. He had challenged a blind student in front of the class and waved his hand in front of her face to prove that she wasn't really blind. That was not an appropriate thing for him to do, and we did have to address that.
Thank you. Next question comes to the classified Senate, and it is, what is your ideal chain of command used to communicate with you?
Well, let me see. If there's a complaint, usually a college has a chain of command. If there's a student complaint about a teacher, they usually are supposed to talk to the teacher first, and then the department chair, and we have division deans, and it works its way through that. If it's a really good idea, or if the building's on fire, I don't really want to think about chain of command. I want somebody to just come in and talk to me right away. I have open office hours every week, and a variety of people schedule time for the open office hour and come by and talk to me. And sometimes they have a complaint, and sometimes they have a good idea, and sometimes they want more resources. Just depends. But during open office hour, there's no chain of command.
Thank you. And then this is going to be the last of our first 6 questions prepared from the constituent groups. And it asks, and it's from the Management Senate, how would you approach the need for expanded services and the reality of a declining budget?
That's a really hard question, and I think all colleges are struggling with that, and I think we're going to have to struggle with it even more. I really don't think the budget's going to get much rosier from the state in the next couple of years, and I think we all have to work together to be really creative about how we're going to get through this period. Some of us remember that a while back we went through this kind of recession thing and cuts, and that not only did the money dry up, but the timing was awful. The governor didn't approve budgets until late into the year. I'm expecting that there's going to be budget revisions after the elections in November, so that anything you do in a budget process right now is still on shaky ground. If you remember the instructional equipment budget cut that came in after we'd already started the school year, they revised our growth and deficit, our growth funding, way after you can do anything to manage the enrollment. So I think that it's going to get worse before it gets better, and we have to be very smart right now. In terms of expanded services, what we're talking about doing is consolidations and partnerships. We're really reaching out to our community. That's what I would want to do here, to help them understand what kinds of financial responsibilities we have and the limited support we're getting from the state. We've looked at partnerships, like I was telling you about the Lanterman Partnership, or partnerships with Cal Poly and partnerships with school districts to make our resources go further. We're talking about on our campus doing things like we have a very large honors program and a large study abroad program, and consolidating those into one area where the clerical support staff can be shared. We're talking about trying to save jobs, and so we're talking about attrition and sort of a chill on the hiring until we know how things are going to fall out. I don't really think we're going to have a good idea until January about what our finances are going to be.
Thank you. Now it's your turn.
I'm going to come over here then.
Keep you on my toes here, Bob. Bob is really good on these switch
Yeah, he
mics
is.
here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a little change, and we're going to be asking you to ask the questions. And right now, the crack staff here is distributing microphones, and they're going to be coming down, up and down the aisle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from this aisle to that aisle, or I guess I'm going to go from this aisle to that aisle over here. And so remember, just try to ask one question at a time. And the first person up with his hand was a fine gentleman down here in front. And so he's going to be our first questioner. And so if you would, just give me an idea on this side who also would like to ask a question. So we'll have Terry next, and then Barbara on this side. Who over on this side? So we have Paul in the back. And so what'll happen is, Diana, once Emmanuel asks this question, you have to run back to the back for Paul, and then Connie will come back to Terry next. Okay? So we'll do that.
Welcome, Dr. Gavin. My name is Emmanuel Payan, and I'm First Vice President of CSEA Chapter 359 here at Delta College.
And what's Chapter 359?
It's the chapter number of our union here.
The reason I ask is we have 2 chapters on our campus. And
Yeah, we're the sole exclusive representative here at Delta. And the chapters are named after, depending on what order you came in into state CSEA.
Thank you.
Okay, and here's my question. With collective bargaining, what's your experience on collective bargaining? And if you had to, at an impasse, would you take action?
Okay, my experience with collective bargaining is that I was a faculty negotiator at Rio Hondo College when we first went into collective bargaining, so I was on the faculty who negotiated the first contract there. Then I went to Citrus College as a faculty member, and I was a faculty negotiator there. Once I went into management and became a CIO, my own personal feeling is it's not appropriate for a CIO to be involved in collective bargaining at the table. We administer the contract, and I try to administer it quite well, but I think you wind up, you can, in difficult times, damage the relationship that you should be having with the faculty if you're the CIO and also negotiating. But I serve as a resource to the district team, so that when they have issues that relate to classroom, then I go into the district team, and I have initiated improvements in the contract from the district side. I can tell you a couple of them, and they probably aren't as much interest to you because you're CSEA, but I'm assuming there's faculty in the room. We did try to improve where the salary for placement, initial placement was, so that we could be more competitive in recruiting better faculty. When I started at Mount SAC, they did not give salary credit for work experience outside the classroom. And since I wanted to hire people that had come from what we sometimes call the real world, I wanted them to get salary credit for that experience as well as for their teaching experience. We've recently improved the salary of part-time faculty, and I was supportive of that. We recently increased the department chair's stipend and reassigned time because department chairs at our college had a lot of work to do, and I supported all of those issues. I also support the clause in the contract that says that administrators can do disciplinary evaluations, and I would say that our association doesn't quite agree with that. I have supervised classified staff when I was at Citrus College. I was Dean of Administrative Services, which meant that I supervised grounds, custodians, facilities, risk management, all of those kinds of areas, and I got used to working with classified contract. As a CIO, I don't work with that as much. So I'm trying to think of how else I can help you with that question. Yeah. Oh, at impasse, I think it's the job of the president to roll up her sleeves and go in and try to broker something between the board and the district and the unit.
Okay. Thank you. Terry, and then we'll go back to Paul, and then Connie after Terry, then you have to get to Barbara in the back there.
Welcome, Dr. Cavin. My name is Terry Ogata, and I'm the CSEA president for Chapter 359.
Okay.
My question is a two-parter. Define what a healthy work environment means to you, and what active role have you taken to promote a healthy work environment at your current place of employment, and how do you plan on continuing this at Delta College?
I really like that question. Thank you very much. When I was at Citrus and I worked with more classified staff than I have been at Mount San Antonio College, I was very supportive of our staff development program that we had with Keenan and Associates, and they came in and talked about preventing back injury. We had all of our classified staff knew how to use fire extinguishers and give CPR, and we talked about repetitive motion injuries, and we improved the situation in dealing with hazardous materials. So I was really active in that, and I think that one of the places that I really encourage a lot of student and staff support is if you have anything that's like a safety committee, because the students and the staff are the eyes and ears for safety for the college, and if they see something that deals with lighting or trip and fall or anything like that, then being involved in the safety committee and really understanding the process is important. And the more people that are involved in having a safe campus, the better. So that's what I did at Citrus. At Mount San Antonio College, I don't have that same kind of role, but I just recently had a discussion with our staff development coordinator about the governor's cutting of staff development budgets. And to me, the last element that we should give up in terms of staff development training has to do with safety. I think that we need to make sure that all of our staff understand what safe working conditions are.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, did I get all of your question? Because I think I missed maybe part of it.
Terry, could I come back to you just so that we just try to keep it one question to an individual? So, Paul, where are you? Way in the back, Paul.
My name is Paul Gutierrez. I'm not in the union. I'm a manager here at Delta. And during a month or so ago, the Accreditation Review Committee identified one of the concerns as being to have a climate, to improve the climate here on campus, especially as it related to people of color. What will you, as a leader of this district, do to improve, to augment the environment here on campus?
I'm not sure if I heard clearly all of the questions, so I was trying to hear it, and some of it was a little bit garbled, so I might not get this quite right. But you're saying, I think you said that the accreditation exit report, they probably haven't gotten your report back to you yet.
That's correct. Just
but the exit report talked about improving the climate, and then I couldn't really quite hear what kind of climate you were improving.
To improve the climate here on campus, especially as it relates to people of color.
Got it. Thank you. Actually, I know one of the people who visited you because Nancy Rice works at Mount San Antonio College as our chief financial officer, and she was on your team. And what she shared with me was that it was a wonderful college, and I'd be lucky to come here. In terms of improving the climate for people of color, I can just tell you that throughout my entire career, I've always had diverse hirings. We are hiring 30 full-time faculty this year. So that means that for I do the second interview on our campus. I've interviewed about 60 people, and the last time I checked, we were at about 40% diversity, which is good when you consider the complexion of the pools coming forward. We have moved progressively since I've been at Mount Sac for 5 years to improving the diversity of the faculty. And what I do is I provide them with a support system so that once they get to the college and we've recruited them, we retain them and they feel comfortable and productive in their workplace. So that, for example, I'm hiring 3 African American out of the 30. And what I've done is I've met informally when you see people on campus with tenured African American faculty to say, maybe not in your department, but over in this department, there's going to be somebody new, and can you make a point of calling them when they get here in the fall and welcoming them and making them feel good about the college, which they're always very, very gracious about doing. So as we've been hiring Asian, Hispanic, and African American faculty, I think it's important for the faculty to reach out and make them feel comfortable, and for me to initiate that and establish that that's an important value. We provide a new faculty orientation for all new faculty that's 1 year in length, and it helps them get to meet one another. A lot of times there'll be one new faculty in this department and another new faculty in that department, and they don't get to share with one another, provide support for one another. If you don't have a climate that's welcoming and supportive for new faculty, minority faculty are a hot commodity, and they will walk somewhere else very quickly. And I've seen that happen at neighboring colleges. So I think it's really important to care for them once you have them, and to value what they bring to the classroom.
Thank you. Who on this side has a question that would be next? Okay, we have a question over here from a community, experienced community member over here on our left. And then we're going to go from Connie, and then Tony will be the next. So Barbara, you're next.
Hello, Dr. Cavin. I'm Barbara Crocker. I'm faculty in the Fine Arts Division.
Hi, Barbara. What do you do in the Fine Arts Division?
I teach in the Drama Department.
Hooray for the Drama Department.
Thank
Is this
you.
your theater?
Well, there's one of them. We have three.
Okay.
Can you tell me what is there about San Joaquin County, our community, that attracts you to want to come here? And how do you plan on establishing your residence here in our county?
Okay. My husband and I have recently been having discussions about quality of life and what kind of community we wanted to find and make a home in. One of the things we wanted was essentially a college kind of environment, which you have here because of Delta and because of University of Pacific. We also wanted something a little bit more rural. He's a Minnesota boy, and he grew up with a summer house on a river, and he likes to grow tomatoes and all those kinds of things that it gets very challenging to find a river that actually has water in it in Southern California. We usually have our rivers are full of concrete and refuse. So we were talking about those kinds of issues when this job came open. I brought him up for the first interview, and we looked at, while I was doing the interviewing, he was out meeting with real estate agents. He's about ready to retire, and he has a reduced load next year. And he has a partnership in town, which they're in the transition of turning that over to younger architects. I think every architect wants to build his own home at some point, and that's probably one of his dreams. So he was negotiating with me after the first interview, and he said if we moved here, he would need to have a boat and a red truck and build his own home. So I think, you know, we're closing the deal.
All right, thank you. I think.
Did that answer your question? Okay.
Okay, Joan, I think you're next, and then Tony.
Joan Matthews, I'm a member of the community. Barbara asked my question, but I thought of something else in the interim. And I was wondering what your connection was with state legislators and policymakers, and how would you tap that resource to benefit Delta College?
Well, the first college president that I worked for, Lou Zellers, was very good about mentoring his vice presidents on proper behavior in Sacramento. One of the other things that's really nice about this college is it's closer to Sacramento, and you don't have to catch a 6:30 a.m. flight to get there for an early morning meeting. At any rate, he actually taught us what to do with legislators, and I'm used to working with their staff, and I'm used to calling them when we need help. I'm used to providing forums for them on our campus so that they can meet our students and our faculty. And I'm used to having regional meetings with legislators. Right now, probably the one that I'm the closest to is Bob Pacheco, who's an assemblyman, who's been very supportive of community colleges. He just won an award from the League for his support of community colleges, and we're so close he kissed me on Saturday, so that's We were at a teddy bear tea fundraiser for Walnut Unified School District, and I told him I was a finalist, and he said, just have him call me, Rita, and I'll tell him how good you are. So that's my experience with legislators.
Okay, thank you. Tony, and then Steve down here.
I'm Tony Cedillo from the counseling faculty.
Tony, but I caught.
Cedillo.
Yes, but where did you're from?
Counseling.
Counseling, okay.
I'm glad
And I haven't mentioned counselors very
you were
much.
mentioning 1725 because I believe that's the one that was talking about that there should be 75% full-time faculty and
Yes.
25. I'd like to know how you feel and where your school stands with the trend that schools have gone from full-time faculty to adjunct faculty and counseling from full-time counselors to adjunct and part-timers. Where does your school stand? How have you been doing?
Well, where my school stands and where I stand are probably different at this point. At Citrus, I had a much better ratio of full-time to part-time faculty, and I can't remember exactly what it is now because it's been 5 years, so it's changed anyway. At Mount SAC, I've tried to improve it. I'm part of a 75-25 task force that I meet with the association and the Senate. We have a 5-year plan that we developed. Remember when the governor said we had to turn one in, or the chancellor, and first they said we had to do it. They said it was a not funded, mandated cost, so then we didn't have to do it. Well, we did it anyway. So we have a 5-year plan to improve the ratio, and we've made some progress in improving it. Our counselors, we don't have enough. We probably have one of the worst rates in the state. It's not that I agree with that. We have a shared governance process for prioritizing faculty positions, and sometimes I agree with the end result and sometimes I don't. They ask for counselors every year. This year I was overjoyed because we got an art historian, which I'd been asking for 5 years, which tells you the amount of control I have over this process. It's a good process, it's healthy, people make requests, and then there's a large group that decides on the ranking, and for some reason counselors have not done as well. But it isn't that. I think at this point, I think most of the management voices on that group are in favor of having more counselors. In fact, I'm sure they are. But I think there's some other groups that are represented on the faculty prioritization process that don't feel the same way. I would like to have more counselors that had a specific focus. The last couple that we've gotten, that's how we got them. One was for learning communities. Another one was for Summer Bridge program. And what we've been able to do at Mount SAC is to bridge the counseling faculty with the classroom faculty in the learning community environment. And I think as we move into that direction, it'll become very obvious very quickly that we don't have enough counselors. So that might improve the situation. But I think it's a terrific question because it's a real problem.
All right, thank you. Steve?
Good afternoon. My name is Steve.
Where is Steve? There you are. Okay, thank you.
Hi. My name is Steve Schimmerhorn. I'm a member of the faculty.
Okay. Which department?
I'm a librarian.
Aha, okay.
And I was hoping you could tell us what the most important challenges facing community college libraries are today.
Well, let me see how many there are. One of them is going to be information competency and where we go with that. That's a state issue, and each college, I think, is going to resolve it a little bit differently. The technology, it used to be books on shelves, and it's online databases, and you guys need all the training you can get to keep up with that. Plus, we need to fund the online databases, and people that understood buying books for libraries frequently don't understand buying periodicals on databases. Our students have clamored for, and we have provided, increased library hours and increased learning resource hours, which means on our campus tutoring and supplemental instruction. They're all part of the same division. And now that we're having some budget cuts, nobody wants to give up those extended hours because the students have used them so much. So something else is going to have to give that wasn't there before, because now that we've got the extended hours, nobody wants to cut there. Okay.
All right, thank you. That's going to conclude our first 20 minutes. When we come back, Marcos will be the first person in the open forum session, when we return. And then those of you on this side also think about who wants to ask some questions all over the place. So we'll have another 20 minutes of open questions here. But now we're going to move to the next 6 questions. And that means that Stan is going to come up there and bring up our next question. Still thinking about that black screen issue. All right. So we're right on time. You're doing a great job out there. So you're doing a great job.
There's no question.
Okay, next question, comes from the Academic Senate, and it's the College Shared Governance Committees have established a process for distribution of the Partnership for Excellence monies. The various groups have submitted the projects according to the guidelines. You receive the projects and disagree with some of the projects which have been approved according to the shared governance process. What are you going to do, and why are you going to do it?
Can you correct me if I'm wrong that this is a hypothetical problem, because you guys would have worked this PFE stuff out a long time ago, right? So this is just a what if I disagree with the results of a process? Okay. Because I thought, oh my God, if they're still trying to decide what to do with PFE, it's almost gone. Okay. You know, I think I alluded to it earlier. I'll just compare it to the prioritization process. I lobby and I try to be articulate and I try to have informal meetings and do all kinds of things to exert influence over a process. I thought we really needed an art historian as soon as I got to the college 5 years ago. It took me 5 years of that to finally get one for this fall. So I think I have just learned to live with the results of shared governance processes. Usually, over the long run, everything works out, and you get involved in the process, you get your hands on it, you talk to people, and then I'm real comfortable just living with the results. There is so much need, and our students are so important, and they need so much, and there's so little money that even with all the PFE money, I can't think of any bad use for it. So if you spend all the money on something, and I still had some things I wanted to get money for, that's fine, because the money you spent was well done. And there's just not enough money to go around, and so everybody can't be happy all the time.
Okay, thank you. All right, Connie, next question is presented by the student government. It says, please name and comment on a progressive, positive, or courageous act taken by each of the following groups while under your leadership: classified staff, students, faculty, and management.
Okay. I might not take them all in this order. Let me think. A progressive, positive, or courageous act. The classified staff, I'm trying to think now, because they've done a lot of things. I think our classified staff at Mount SAC did something called an Open Space Technology Forum that was courageous and innovative and positive. We were trying to develop a technology plan, and it's one of those things that can spin around in the shared governance process forever, trying to get everybody's input. And it was our classified staff that organized this gigantic event with all kinds of technical support. And they had, in one day, they had this giant forum you could go into. They had this process all worked out. They had sandwiches so nobody had to leave the room. They had experts. They had breakout sessions. They posted things on a web page. They got all kinds of feedback. And at the end result was we had a technology plan by the time they all finished it. And everybody, faculty, managers, everybody felt that they had a voice in it. But it was the classified staff that put that whole thing together, and it was phenomenal in terms of the amount of work that it took. The students, right now, our students have 2 years worth of student leadership together, have worked on a fountain, and the fountain's been sort of controversial on our campus. It started out with a donation of art that some people found unacceptable. They wanted to have a fountain honoring the indigenous peoples of the world on their campus. And so 1 year's worth of students raised money and got this piece of art. And then the next year's worth of students needed to implement the fountain. And they have gone through every bureaucratic process in the book with patience and dignity and even a sense of humor. And now we've had our groundbreaking, and the fountain is to be dedicated in the fall, which will be a third group of student leaders. So that continuity has been very impressive, but also their handling of the money, the fundraising, the working with the board over some questions that we had about what kind of quotes would be on the fountain, the look of the fountain. It's going to be very nice. It's going to be, when you walk outside the library, there'll be this cascade of water and some seating and some trees, and it'll be very respectful and will honor the indigenous people of the world, which is what the students really wanted. But it's taken 3 student body presidents to do this. For the faculty, I think going out for the third bond, we really wanted a bond to be approved. And the first group that came in to help us with our campaign had been very successful with K-12 campaigns. And they basically said the only way to do this, I mean, these people were very credible, the only way to do this is to have a stealth campaign. And they told us that we shouldn't have signs, we shouldn't have things in the newspapers, we should be very low profile, and that only the people who wanted it would go to the polls and vote, and there would be no opposition at the polls. I can just tell you from our experience that plan doesn't work. So, didn't work. But we all did what we were told to do, which was to keep quiet, keep low, wear beige, keep your mouth shut. You know, like the mother of the groom, when I was the mother of the groom, that's your role. You wear beige and you keep your mouth shut. Anyway, so we did what we were told, we lost. Then the next one came along, and they said they'd been good at getting bonds approved. And it was what we call the Rusty Pipe campaign. And they took photographs of everything that was rusty and broken on our campus. The faculty were humiliated. It made them look like they were working in a third world country. Again, it was keep the faculty quiet, don't let them say anything. They had tours of people going around the campus looking at crumbling foundations. That doesn't work. So the third time, there's nothing, absolutely nothing more demoralizing than coming onto a campus the day after you've lost an election. It is just awful. I never, ever, ever want to do that again. The third time, we couldn't stand it any longer, and I asked the faculty to support us and go out for a bond. And I got faculty leadership to support us. We invented our own campaign. We put it together. The faculty did fundraising. The faculty went to a board meeting. It was just absolutely spectacular. We had rehearsed and scripted a presentation to the board where they came in with masses of them with balloons, with checks attached to the balloon, and put them in front of the board. The board couldn't even see the room. There were so many balloons in there, and people, and we based the whole campaign on what the faculty had contributed since the 1940s to the community. And it was Remember, Restore, Renew was the campaign. The faculty got very excited about it. They manned telephone banks. We had one man, Lou Shaneberg, who's a biologist, and he had this wonderful thing that he wrote about how he was a student at Mount SAC, and he was in the biology lab, and when he came back as a teacher, it was the same lab with the same equipment, and when now he's ready to retire, it's the same lab and the same equipment, and he put this on some kind of a tape. I don't know the technology, but they could send it to 20,000 homes. Hi, I'm Lou Shaneberg, I teach biology, and so he could do like 20,000 calls in a night. The faculty got so involved, but the courage to do that after 2 previous failures was absolutely stunning. And I think the night that they presented to the board and said, we'll do it, we'll, forget the experts, we'll do it for you, was a lot of courage. Did I run out of time? I forgot the managers.
You mean the black screen, the ominous black screen?
But the managers are the last group.
No, the management's the last group. Yeah.
I think the managers are brave just to come to work. You know, they do brave things every single day, and a lot of them deal with personnel, and so you can never talk about them. So what we do at our dean's meeting is every now and then I'll say, everybody give Sarah a round of applause. We can't tell you why, but she did something great this week.
Oh, that's great. Our next question comes from the Academic Senate. It says, after being at Delta College for a couple of months, you review the master plan and discover some areas of concern that you had not originally seen. What are you going to do, and why are you going to do it?
Well, first of all, I'd ask them questions before I did anything, because I could just be wrong in my assessment of the plan. I can tell you that when I got to Mount San Antonio College, I'd done a lot of facilities planning at Citrus, and I really do have a good understanding of that. And I looked at their facilities master plan, and it was really awful. They had not involved the staff, they had not involved the students, they had not involved the faculty. It was driven by a couple of people, and it wasn't very good. And if I leave Mount Sac to come here, I can be really proud of the fact that there are some buildings now that are going to get built for our students and our faculty that wouldn't have been there if I hadn't have interceded. We did something called a 2020 vision. We involved a whole lot of people. We spent a whole lot of time. We revised the plan. We will now have a welding and air conditioning facility that's worthy of us. We will have a health careers facility that's very professional. We have now a wonderful farm plan that we didn't have before. We'll have something called a design technology center, which will bring together GIS and animation and architecture and all the computer-based design parts of the curriculum. And those wouldn't have been there if I hadn't have stopped things and said we need to rethink the plan. So I'm comfortable doing that, but I think after a couple of months it'd be a little brash, and so I might want to have a meeting and ask some people and do a little research.
Thank you. Next question is,
That's the same
sounds
question.
a little redundant, but
I've answered all the questions. I can go on now.
no. Classified staff, how would you, or classified Senate, how would you approach organizational change to meet your ideal structure?
First, I don't have an ideal structure. I've worked at 3 community colleges and 1 private college, and I don't think there's an ideal structure. I'm pretty used to taking what I've got and working with it. One of the things I think somebody had asked about why I was attracted to the county, but in terms of the college, there are people out there who want to be the presidents and go fix major things. And I'm not one of those. I'm really good at enhancing and facilitating, but I don't want to be a new broom kind of president. I don't have any interest in that at all. And this isn't the kind of college that needs that. And I don't think that you go in. I went from one structure at Citrus to another one at Mount Sac, and they don't look anything alike, and I'm really comfortable in both of them. I just don't think there's an ideal. It's all based on people and trust and communication, and you can pretty much make any structure work. It came from the classified Senate, though, so I don't know if there's more to that question than I'm reading. But in terms of large-scale organizational change, you know, people that come in and create new divisions and create new departments and move all the people around, I don't really see doing a lot of that. It takes a lot of energy that you can use for much more productive efforts.
Thank you. Next question comes from the Management Senate. How would you approach the problem of a critical operational unit in the college that is failing to address the needs of other operational units?
Well, that would depend on the operational unit and who it was, and I'm trying to think. Let's just say it's the computer people and technology. I think you have to, just to guess, it could be maintenance, it could be safety, security, it could be, there's a whole bunch, it could be admissions, you know, all of us could be up there on that screen. Could be my office. But just for an example, if it's the computer group, it could be that they're not staffed correctly, that they're not funded adequately, that they haven't had their goals set out clearly enough, that they don't understand that other people are coming in and complaining about them. A lot of times people will come complain to a vice president or president before they tell you yourself that they don't like what you're doing. So I think you just need to explore what's going on, what the reason is. Sometimes it's somebody that's close to retirement and they're not keeping up with the rest of the college. So I think every college has an area that people think isn't quite up to the rest of the college, and then you just have to figure out whether it's a personnel issue or a resources issue or just lack of clarity or direction.
Okay, thank you. And this will be the last of the questions from the shared governance groups, and it's from student government. It says, please cite an example of how your institution values student needs and student leadership.
I'm going to twist the question a little bit just to make it more personal. I'm going to do, if that's okay, what are you going to do? Tell me I can't do this, I suppose. I'm going to say how I value student needs and student leadership because my institution isn't a candidate. I can just tell you some of the things I've done for students since I've been at Mount SAC. We have a thing called Stars of Excellence, which I'm very proud of. I invented it, I got it funded, and basically it means that when students compete regionally, nationally, or internationally, we fund it. So if they get to that level of competition, we take care of the costs, and that means our faculty and students do not do bake sales and car washes and pizza drives. They practice forensics, or they practice for the Kennedy Theater, or they practice VICA, or whatever it is, but we fund that. We used part of our PFE money for employment on campus to improve retention. One of the things that we looked at were engagement studies, student engagement, and we looked at what some other colleges were doing in terms of mentoring relationships and bonding faculty and students together. So particularly in our science labs, we have jobs for students who are science students so that we can maybe even recruit them into the profession of community college teaching. Right now I'm working, you have a wonderful campus here with lots of outside student seating that's informal, but we don't have anything like that, so the students sit on the ground. And I've been working with the student leadership and facilities planning to improve informal seating. We've expanded the hours of the Learning Assistance Center, tutoring, supplemental instruction. We've opened tutoring labs for athletes called WIN, and a tutoring lab for the math called MARC. We've put in, I don't know if you have supplemental instruction here. It's a sort of a super tutor kind of a program. We've put in supplemental instruction and summer bridge programs and freshman experience programs. So I value students and I value student success. I think that's why we're all here. And in terms of student leadership, I mentor student leaders. They come into my office. I try to help them out. Their jobs are very difficult and they take a lot of criticism from different members of their group. And they put in tons of hours and they care a lot, and sometimes they just get all caught up in the process and the bureaucracy, and they just need somebody to help them out a little bit. So at the board meetings, I sit next to the student trustee, and he was getting attacked at a board meeting not too long ago, and it was very unpleasant and uncalled for. And I remember writing him a little note saying, don't answer now, be calm, think before you say anything, so he could get through the meeting. And then he came in my office and we talked, and I gave him a little yellow plastic rubber duck so that he could remember that water rolls off their backs, and you just have to sort of get through meetings like that if you're going to be a student leader. But I very much value student leadership.
All right, Bob, keep you on your toes here.
Okay.
All right, Bob, keep you on your toes here. No. So that concludes the 12 questions from the various shared governance groups. And now we're going to go back into the audience, and our crack staff is getting their microphones primed. And so Marcos is going to be the first one. Where's Marcos? Is he still? Oh, there you are. And who are we going to go to over here? We have Ina over here. And then we'll go right in front, and then we'll check somebody over here. I know Manuel's already asked a question. So we'll go in the back right there. So you'll get your time. You already had your first question. All right, Marcos, you're up.
My name is Marco Contreras. I'm a community activist and a faculty at Delta College. My question,
What department are you in, sir?
the English and communication skills, ESL classes. My question to you is your experience as relate to diversified student population. You know that we have a diverse student population here at Delta College, very diverse community in the service area. And how do you feel, you had any experience in dealing with ethnic studies program, and how would you feel supporting such a program here at Delta College, an ethnic studies degree certificate program?
Okay. Right now at Mount San Antonio College, the percentage is 40% Hispanic, 20% Asian, 6% African American. And I would say the white population is getting smaller as those groups get larger. Within those big categories, we have a growing number of Islamic students. We have a large Indian community. We actually have Buddhist monks with the saffron robes taking classes at our campus because we're close to a temple. Our big concern after 9/11 was the care and protection of our Islamic students, especially the women who are very identifiable on campus. I recently asked the Foreign Language Department to consider adding Arabic to its curriculum, and I hope they will be exploring that. We have a very large ESL program, extremely large. Probably over, I'm trying to think, we have 40,000 students. 28,000 of them are credit students. So of the remaining 12, I would say way over half, so maybe 7,000 students are ESL students. So we're sort of, I'm used to a diverse community. I live in one and work in one. In terms of ethnic studies, I think there's a place for that. The Cal States have ethnic study programs as long as they're transferable. And even if they're not transferable, sometimes they're just enriching for members of the community. At Mount San Antonio College, we have major acknowledgement of Cesar Chavez Day. I've worked with the student leadership on that to move them from, when I first got there, I thought it was sort of a cake and mariachi festival kind of environment, and worked with the student leadership to move it into something that's more involved with food drives and an awareness of what his contributions were. And they work with small children for Cesar Chavez. We also have something called Thunder and Silk, which is a celebration of Asian culture every spring. So I think that in addition to ethnic studies, you also have to do things, maybe utilizing this facility or facilities like it, and open your doors to those community groups. From the material that you sent me to prepare for the first interview, it appeared that President Gould was reaching out to the black community in this area and had made good strides in that area. I don't know if I answered your question. It looks like...
My question is specifically about establishing an ethnic studies program at Delta College.
And I said
what commitment would you make?
Okay.
I said I supported ethnic studies programs.
Okay, thank you.
Am I still not, I have the sense I'm still not answering the question.
Well, I think we'll have to, you did the best you could. We'll have to move on. Okay, Ina, I think you're next.
Hi, Dr. Cavin. My name is Ina Hall. I'm the Director of Financial Aid and Veteran Services here at Delta. And my question is, what kind of experience have you had working with your student services divisions at your campus, or any projects that you've been involved with student services?
At Citrus, I worked very closely with DSP&S because it reported to me. And at SAC, it reports to the Vice President of Student Services. So I'm very used to working with accommodation issues and access issues. I work with admissions staff on enrollment management, priority registration, those kinds of issues. A lot in terms of dealing with, we've been switching our MIS system, and that's been sort of a nightmare, and so I've had to work really closely with admissions. I think earlier I said that I worked with counseling in regards to learning communities and Summer Bridge program. I haven't had that much of a chance to work closely with job placement and the financial aid, except I'm very aware through cabinet level meetings that financial aid at both campuses was exhausting and challenging and required superhuman efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Sandra Scott, and I'm the Director of Customized Training and Workforce Development here at the college. So my question is, what do you see the role of community colleges playing in regional economic development?
I think that they're crucial. Our college, we have a separate vice president just for handling non-credit, contract ed, workforce development, and all of those kinds of issues. And I work really closely with her in a lot of things we partner on. The community college has to be responsive not only to the traditional student coming in or reentry student, but also to taking training out to the workforce. It's not all going to be students coming here and investing in a semester or a quarter or whatever calendar you evolve into over time. Right now, we have a small business development center. We have contract ed. We're very involved with regional workforce development issues and initiatives and panels and boards and collaboratives. And we have a regional health occupations resource center on our campus that serves the region. So I just don't see how we're going to produce enough healthcare professionals and help our businesses enough. And if we don't provide those services, nobody else is providing them. I don't know what you're going to do about money, but.
Okay, thank you. I think we have Manuel down here, but who on this side then has another question for Dr. Cavin? Anybody on this side? Oh, we have Jan down here in front. I feel like an auctioneer now. This is kind of cool. Okay. And then after Manuel, who on this side? Okay, then we'll go back up to Dan. So, Manuel, you're up.
Dr. Cavin, I like.
Finally your turn.
Yes. You will learn I'm very persistent if you become president. You will learn that I'm very persistent if you become president here at Delta College. I want to go back to the question that Terry Ogata, the chapter president, and it ties into what Paul Gutierrez from Human Resources, and it's about a healthy work environment. And you answered the question by using safety. I don't think Terry meant that. How do you tie in the different shared governance groups, whether there's the students, classified, the management, and the community, and the board? And I'm not putting them in that order, but all the groups, and faculty. How do you tie them together to create this collaborative and healthy work environment?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question because I really thought it was about health and safety and not about sort of campus climate, which is really what we're talking about here. I think campus climate starts at the top with the president and the board setting an example that's respectful and caring, and I think it needs to be a value of the college that it's going to be a good place to work here and that your opinions are going to be respected and that you're going to be listened to. And I just think that the more people that model that behavior, the better the place becomes. And maybe the best example that I can give you is a negative example where I had somebody in my office that was not doing that and had feelings that probably most of the people in this room wouldn't approve of, but he was going to be an employee, and there wasn't anything that I could do about that. But I could say to him, I can't control how you feel in your heart, but I can really have something to say about how you behave to other people. And as a result of your behavior with other people, these are the limits that we will put on you so that you can't hurt other people in your role here. And I expect the behavior to stop. You can control your behavior. You can control how you talk to people and what you do to people. Whether you want to be best friends with them is completely, I don't care. I just care how you behave. And I think you have to have those kinds of discussions sometimes. Because I think most people at community colleges in California, most campuses, most people, I don't know any classified staff that doesn't do everything possible to help students. I mean, they knock themselves out. And two stories. When I started at Mount Sac and I was going to go interview there, I walked around the campus on the weekend when it was quiet to check it out. And I met a security person who walked me around and showed me the campus and told me what was important to him. And I always remembered how nice that was to have that little private tour on the weekend. Well, this last week I was interviewing sociology teachers, and one of the sociology teachers said that she came to our campus the weekend before her interview and did the same kind of thing, and that we had somebody from grounds who was there working on a project. And she said she was a candidate, and he said that she really wanted a schedule of classes before her interview. And he got her into the administration building and got a schedule of classes for her and told her where she needed to go to be, he was very helpful to her. People remember all those little tiny things, and I think you just have to set up that this is how you're going to operate. We just recently had a retreat just to talk about those kinds of issues and how to be kind to one another. I think most people really want that. They want to come to a place to work where they feel good about themselves and where they want to come to work in the daytime. And most of us, I mean, if you're like every other community college, you work extra hours, you go the extra mile for your students, and you want to feel really good about that, and you want to feel like people recognize it. And I think that just, there's ways to build that in to a campus, and I think it starts with leadership. But by leadership, I'm really saying classified leadership and people like Roger. It was wonderful that Roger called me and asked me to lunch before this. In fact, when I was telling the board member that I was a candidate here, I said, the most wonderful thing happened. The Senate president called me and asked me if I'd like to have a sandwich before the forum. Isn't that a nice thing to do? It's all those little tiny things that people do that don't get recognized enough that make a difference. And I think you need public recognition of moments like that.
Thank you. And Jan?
Hi, Dr. Gavin.
Hi.
I'm Jan Mullen, one of the library faculty.
Hi, Jan.
And my question revisits something you said earlier. What would you see as your role in assisting to implement information competency on a college campus?
Well, I think that's more of an issue for the local Senate, and I'd be interested in listening to what the Senate wants to do about that. That's going to be statewide. It's going to be an issue that requires a lot of discussion from the faculty. There's real strong feelings on both sides. One is that we don't want additional barriers to graduation, and the other is that we want our graduates to be able to evaluate data and information. And I think we're going to find a balance somewhere, but I don't know this college well enough to presume to have an answer for that, because that's going to be one of those things that everybody has to chew on for a little while. It is inevitable, and everybody has the best interests of the students. I think there's just two different voices out there at this time.
Okay, Connie's going to head back to Dan. Anybody on this side of the room? Okay, Harry, we're going to have you be looks like the last question of the day here. So,
Dan Flores, counselor. I guess my question is, being that you would be with us here sometime soon, assuming you're going to be our president, that you're going to be wearing both president and superintendent and president. I'm really concerned about the financial stream of this community college district. And I would like to know very specifically what has been your direct experience in maintaining financial stream to the college, and also what do you expect that you could be able to do with a upcoming years to come with diminishing returns in a style of management that will have less, not more?
I want to make sure I understand your question and don't screw it up like I did this other question over here. You're asking, I'm just trying to get my hands on the question that you're asking.
The financial stream basically is the resources, the property tax, the money that comes from the state, that basically that pays my check at the end of each month.
Right.
And I think that that becomes critical for all of us as employees, but mostly in terms of the growth and the changing demographics, not only of the city of Stockton, but what may happen or may not happen with a bond issue in the future, what could possibly be happening also with how do you accommodate the needs of the growing needs out in the Motherlode County, in Calaveras County, these other areas. We're almost 2,400 square mile area.
Right.
At whose cost? Are we going to have less resources on campus to have the growth on the outside or the inside? How are you going to dissipate counseling services, student services? Do you have a plan? But mostly, I assume until you know the whereabouts, the lay of land, what is your specific experience in that area?
Thank you. And I would have answered it wrong because I didn't understand it the first time. So thank you for repeating it. I think that Assemblyman Pacheco is correct in terms of lobbying for our fair share of Prop 98 money. We've lost literally billions of dollars as a community college system since they've been deficiting the Prop 98 money. And I think that there's money, that's one good thing that we should be doing. I think we should be talking about probably assessing a technology fee. I wouldn't be surprised if in the fall after elections, if the legislature started talking about increased student fees with increased financial aid. So I think they're changing mechanisms right now for funding. One of the primary drivers in community colleges is enrollment management, because if you fall below your cap, you are penalized severely in terms of your finances. And if you get too far above your cap, there's not enough money to have enough counselors and things in the library, and you have to take from Peter to pay Paul if you go too far above your cap. I'm very experienced in enrollment management, 2 different colleges, and since most of the revenue that you get is based on enrollment, on service to students, that becomes the key to having sound fiscal management. I think that counselors right now feel particularly vulnerable, as do staff development people and people in CalWorks, because that's where the governor was initially looking at cuts. But last year he looked at instructional equipment, and then we lobbied and we got that restored. And so I think there's a lot of lobbying efforts for the parts that he was talking about cutting this time. In terms of any new program, it doesn't matter if it's on campus or off campus, when money is this tight in community colleges, and I can't speak specifically to San Joaquin Delta, but I know at 3 other colleges where I've worked, that if you just even initiate a new program, like when Mount San Antonio College initiated the animation program, all of the other programs said, well, why can you initiate a new program when there's not enough money for the English department to put on enough sections, or there's not enough money for the math lab or whatever. So there's always this balance between the faculty who want to innovate and start something new and the faculty who think there's not already enough money for the existing programs. And I think that's where shared governance is important, because then you have full, open sunshine on the discussion, and you understand that it's not a sweetheart deal, and that there wasn't that somebody liked somebody better and that's why they got money, that there was a process and people were involved in it and they understood what the trade-offs were. And right now we try to start our new programs with grant money, to be frank. We go out and we get grants to start something like a histotech program. And then once it's initiated and we've got all the kinks worked out, then we try to institutionalize it, but the college sees the institutionalization coming. In terms of meeting needs off campus, we've got that too in our district. We're not spread out as much, but we have more people living within our service area than you have in your service area, and they're all clamoring, absolutely clamoring for need, for us to put program in their area. And so what we're trying to do is be very smart about that, and we're trying to partner with school districts and ROPs and hospitals and all kinds of other places so that the facility costs are lower. The community college district right next to us, Chaffee, is building a new college in their district, and the same kinds of questions that you just asked are there. How are we going to stretch not enough counselors over many more places? The model that they're using is that they've put additional counselors in at the beginning of school and then on an appointment basis out in the communities. I don't know that that's successful, but I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to stretch their money and provide services to a town that's too far away for most students to commute. We're having meetings right now about how we're going to provide support services. It's not just counseling, but bookstore services and security and child care and all those other things once you go off campus and you have a lot of duplication of effort. But the fact is, even though our area is smaller than yours, the number of school districts and communities is larger, and the people want the college to come to them. I don't know what we're going to be able to do in terms of online counseling. Right now we have an online librarian, the virtual librarian, that people are able to access, and that's working out okay, but I don't think that counseling can be done in that kind of an environment because it's such a personal, face-to-face kind of experience. But I know that the use of our matric money for orientation has changed in its complexion over time as we've stretched the money over more and more students. I think right now our orientation is token and superficial compared to what it used to be when we had more money.
Okay, thank you. Harry, you're the last question of the day.
My name's Harry Mersman. I teach sociology here.
I just hired a new sociology teacher.
I know.
Yes.
I've watched that. I was wondering if you could talk for a few moments about a book you've read in the last year which you found particularly moving, poignant, or influential.
Well, let me see how to answer this honestly. I have enough poignant, moving, and influential stuff going on while I'm at work that I usually read to escape, and the last thing I read was Smilla's Sense of Snow, which is a mystery, and it's very involving and detailed, and it's got sort of a science geology base. And we went up to Fairbanks to see the Northern Lights for our vacation over spring break, and it was a wonderful place with hot springs to swim in, and it was about 20 below, and there were no telephones and no newspapers, and I took Smilla's Sense of Snow so that I could forget everything that was challenging and influential.
Okay, thank you. Well, now as we conclude, don't forget about filling out your cards. We have to do some of those basic things. And I'd just like to ask if Dr. Cavin would have any closing remarks before we conclude this first town hall meeting.
Yes, I do. I'm going to stand here and do this one. I just wanted to give you some feedback on the process so far from my perspective so that you'd have a better sense of who I am, because I think part of town hall meetings is just getting to know somebody. As I said, my husband and I had been engaged in some quality of life conversations, and about that time your announcement came across my desk, and I've been familiar with Delta and its reputation and its cost analysis that you send out to the other colleges. I use that quite a bit. And I saw the announcement, it had that white egret picture on it, and I just thought, oh, that just looks so wonderful. And so I started thinking about it and asking about it. And you sort of check, you know, why is the other person leaving, and what do you know about that college? And everything was really good. So I turned in the application, and I was at a joint CIO academic senate meeting in San Francisco. I don't know if your senate people went to that, but we had a joint meeting in San Francisco, and I got a phone call from Delta saying I had an interview. So I rented a car and I drove over here. I left the conference a little early and walked around your campus and took some pictures so I could take them home. And it was a Friday afternoon, and you had a lot of students on your campus, and they looked really comfortable, and the college campus was really beautiful, and there's a lot of colleges where there are no students on Friday afternoon. So that was really interesting. And then I went back to work, and that first Monday I was interviewing 6 math teachers because we hired 4 math teachers, and so I asked him just to send me 6 names, and I figured I could get 4 people out of the 6. And the very first person who came in to interview was somebody named Frank Tron, and I think he used a Vietnamese first name when he was here. But at any rate, he was interviewing for a full-time tenure-track math position. And I looked down at his paperwork, and lo and behold, he was a Delta graduate. And he talked about how much Delta meant to him and how he had not spoken any English, and he learned English here, and then he transferred to UC Davis, and then he transferred to UC Santa Barbara. And he got his bachelor's at Davis and his master's at Santa Barbara, so you did really well by him. And how he wanted to teach at a community college to pay back what you'd done. So we got him, we hired him, so he's starting in the fall. And it's nice to know that what you did all those years ago, we're reaping the benefit of. But at any rate, he said very wonderful things about this college. And then they let me know about the second interview, and they started the reference checks, which, depending on how you're getting along on your campus, sometimes that's a scary thing to have happen because people want to know why you want to leave that college. Well, I got a knock on my sort of not, my door's not closed, but sort of a knock. And the faculty association president wanted to see me about something personal. And so he came on in, and he'd gotten a call for a reference check, and he'd gone to Delta. And he's one of, I think, 10 or 11 children, migrant farm worker children. And he came to Delta, and his parents and family still live up here. And he now has a doctorate, and he's the head of our faculty association, and he's an award-winning forensics coach. And he was all excited that I could come here and offered to try to make me seem more presidential, which is just a pointless thing because I'm never going to be that presidential in demeanor, I don't think. But at any rate, he tried to work with me and give me some pointers about what to do with my hands and how to stand and all that. So he was trying to be really helpful. So I have never figured out, I mean, the cynical part could say that he's just trying to get rid of me, you know. But he was trying to be very nice. And then Roger called and asked me for lunch. And so tonight I'm going to have an interview with the board, and that's an opportunity to see if we're on the same page and sort of look at things the same. It's a nice chance to get to know them a little bit better. And I just wanted you to know that I'd be honored to be your president. And I appreciate, I mean, I thought more people would be going in and out and leaving and going to their classes and things, and I appreciate the time you've given me today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, and that concludes today's activities. I hope to see you back tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.